interested in capturing marks on surfaces as sort of evidence of somebody moving through a space, basically. So with parkour, my fascination is the fact that they move so quickly and so gracefully and rapidly through a space that actually I find it quite difficult to remember what they've just done, because I'm always quite sidetracked by what they're doing next and impressed by the next move, and I almost don't have a full understanding of that route they made. So what I'm interested in is trying to trace that route and record evidence of that route that lasts just a little bit longer than the fast sort of movement that they do. So with the thermal imaging camera, you can pick up these marks that they leave behind, these thermal prints.
So the project is a temporary piece of public art that references the area of Mayfair in some way. We commissioned an artist to work on a project that would involve Westminster residents in some way, perhaps as part of the process in the making of the piece of temporary public art.
So in the Research and Development Week, I planned 2 workshops with young people so that I could have the opportunity to use the thermal imaging camera with young people practicing parkour. The first workshop I have to admit, a little bit nervous because it was a very small group and I was only just getting used to using the camera, and it was quite experimental. So while Forrest was leading the workshop and teaching the moves to the young people, I took the camera and I experimented with trying to set up different situations, so different compositions, finding out whether or not I could actually track movement across the room, and whether I should keep still, really basic, simple things that I was learning all of the time. When Forrest would demonstrate a move, they kind of looked a bit horrified or couldn't really believe that that was going to be possible, because Forrest makes everything look so super easy. But then I think as soon as they give it a go and they realised that actually they could do that, it was just so exciting actually to see them initially sort of look slightly wary and horrified, and then a few minutes later they were actually doing those moves and then looking really excited with each other and wanting to carry on and wanting to sort of do it more and more. And I think that was the first time I'd witnessed the kind of skill that Forrest has in bringing around a group of people who initially might have been a little bit reluctant to join in, because I'm not quite sure they understood what they were getting themselves into, and he sort of turned that mood around into, you know, at the end of it they were so excited, and I mean all the questions they were asking me is, when can we do it again?
So on Saturday it will be in Moberly. We have a bigger studio, we have more equipment. We're going to set up straight away some combination, and you're going to use all the moves you use today. So it will be more interesting. Right, good stuff, guys.
More time.
Thank you.
I got a few falls, and actually got really, really hot, like towards the end. The filming was excellent, so if you want to see it. So I'll show you the last first, because actually once you were really warmed up and you had like really sweaty, you were touching, every time you touch things just a tiny bit, it was leaving a really big glow. So I'll show you that one. So there's different things that the camera can do. So you can see there. And the kick on the wall, even your trainer's leaving a...
That's me, I think.
Yeah. You can just about recognise yourself as well,
He's the skinniest one, I can tell.
I could recognise you.
There's nobody, he's not there as well.
Yeah. In the second workshop with the young people, I spent some time with them working with the thermal imaging camera, introducing it to them and showing them what it was capable of. And I asked them to come up with some scenarios that I could film so that they could understand basically the potential of this piece of equipment. And it was really exciting. They were so imaginative with the kinds of situations that they wanted me to film. One guy thought, I think he was thinking about trying to break a code on a computer by using the thermal imaging camera to look at which keys you'd pressed. So he was talking about trying to crack a password or something. And we filmed that, and they were really excited to see the results of their ideas in thermal imaging, and to see something through the point of view of that camera, which is very different to the kinds of results you'd get with a regular video camera. Okay, fantastic.
We can have like, you see where you hold the stairs, just hold on to the end of the wall. Okay, black and white.
Okay, I've started recording.
Can I ask you not to log off from what you're doing, please? Save the work that you have on your computers. Andrea and stuff on.
So basically we're going to go to Mobley, and in Mobley there's a studio that we can use, and we're going to meet a guy called Forrest, who is a professional parkour coach. Does everybody know what parkour is?
I do. Just climbing up walls and things like that.
Oh, well done, Tony.
Fantastic. So Forrest is going to show you some new moves, and I'm going to take the thermal imaging camera. And remember that we've just sort of looked at all these prints that your body makes around the room. Well, I'm going to film you while you're doing parkour in this studio, and I'll be able to pick up all those moves that all the prints that you leave all around the studio. So on all of the equipment, there'll be footprints, handprints, arm prints, and then I'm going to record that and give that footage to use.
It was much harder than it looked.
It made me feel energetic.
I know. It was like it was like a proper full-out workout. I don't know. It's like something you do in the army or go. Something like that. It's like somebody just jumping over, but when you actually do it,
Yeah.
it was much harder because the thing was like that high. So it was proper.
It looks shorter than it is when you're far away. Yeah.
We will come up to this like proper close.
I know.
It was alright, yeah, but it was tiring as well. But maybe it was because the first time I did it. And then maybe when we do it again, it'll be better and I'll get into it more.
I enjoyed it. I feel that I didn't feel comfortable at the beginning. I think it was a lack of confidence that I had.
Yeah, because I thought it was going to be our group. And then when I seen the other boys, I was like, no, I'm not so sure. But then once I got like in, I just carried on.
I quite enjoyed it today. I quite liked it. Not something I would like to do, of course, but yeah, it was quite good.
Yes. Okay. Okay, next up, on the, yes.
Thermal image camera was quite, actually it's quite, how did I say it? Amazing. And it was very fun. Actually, it's very easy. I want one of those cameras, but I gotta save lots of pocket money and so. Lots of pocket money. I can tell I'm 36 and I get a camera. It was quite good because if you touch the wall, the heat will like pass on, and you can see what someone's writing and the keyboards and that stuff. I've been
For rescuing people and all that.
Yeah,
Fire.
it's good.
It's not much about being on camera,
I
but
didn't realise the camera was actually watching me.
But what can you achieve like that? I didn't think I could do, but I literally can. So.
Yeah, because at the beginning he wasn't really, but then once the end came, she was jumping and
So following that initial day where I filmed the young people practicing parkour, I wanted to set up a situation whereby I would have the experience of directing somebody. So I arranged to film Andy, who practices parkour but is also a keen climber, and we arranged that we would film him at a climbing wall, and that just gave me the opportunity to experiment in detail about the kind of compositions that I wanted. I could say to Andy, can you come in from the left-hand side of the screen and then climb and then exit on the right-hand side. I could experiment more with the details Whereas when I was working with young people, I was basically filming whatever happened. I was getting used to just using the camera and filming the marks.
See, they're all still glowing, that one.
That's perfect. Now you've left a huge handprint.
They're still glowing.
Basically, I know the glow forever. It's working good when he's touching, his hands are on the erects, so when it's, or on the features, so when it's pulling like that quite strong and leaving quite a big palm print. And also the shoes, when they're good when they're on the hold, but sometimes it's nice to get the mark when it sort of slightly touches or smears or sort of moves around the wall as well. And you can like draw with your feet. It's amazing when you see the line that's left just by the action of going like that. I think it was really beneficial to have the opportunity to experiment with the camera in that kind of context, because it just gave me the opportunity to work out so many different things that I would then put into practice later on in the project. Those kind of marks, because I think that's probably the closest to the parkour marks as well.
Yeah.
So on the last day that I had the camera, on the Sunday, there were going to be a lot of people getting together to train. So I went along and used that opportunity to gather more footage and more experience with the camera.
Hello, how are you?
I'm fine, thank you.
You can pick up all the marks that you leave on all of the surfaces.
Like,
so,
one?
Yeah. But when you traversing along there, it's picking up the handprints, so you're glowing.
Serious?
Yeah. It's so hard because each wall I've got to readjust the gauge, the temperature. It has a different thermal whatever for each wall, and so and the focus, the sort of depth of field is really narrow, so I'm fiddling with the focus and he's going so fast, and by the time I've got it, he's gone out of shot. I think I've learned that I definitely need to be able to know exactly what I'm going to shoot before I shoot it. Have the camera set up on the surface that I'm going to film before anybody moves into shot, and then say action or something like that, you know, then say start recording, because if I'm doing it like this, they've moved out of shot, and all the brilliant things that are happening that I can see through the lens that are happening, I'm missing because I'm not able to. There's a lot of fiddling about, there's different things that you've got to adjust, so not fast enough and they're too fast. I've got really different stuff today actually. It's been a lot more varied. I think because everybody's just doing their own thing, whereas previously I've been to lessons where obviously it's quite structured and there's a route and everybody's practicing one move for quite a long time, so I'm usually getting in quite close and then like seeing a lot of repetition. But this is all a bit more fast moving, and it's good practice actually using the camera. But I've got lots of different types of shots here. I was just filming Raymond practicing, exercising that movement. I don't know what you call it, but and it was really nice because his foot was just creating, like, it looks like sparks. It's obviously not, but it's the friction drawing against the side of the concrete in the sort of action that he was making with the foot. I think it's something that I couldn't have anticipated, so I couldn't have asked somebody to do that. It's more about observing that it's going on and capturing it, so that's the kind of filming I've been doing today, where I've just been seeing things and capturing them rather than setting them up, you know what I mean? The camera is doing everything that I hoped it could do. So, I mean, that's been a great thing this week, to be able to have the camera and find those things out, and it's all positive stuff, so that's good. I did have in my mind that I wanted to film something which incorporated railings, like coal railings in some way. That isn't working. It is working, but not as I thought it would work, so I'm not sure that I'm going to be able to use that in the way that I first thought. But then other things are coming up, like the tree, when they were jumping on the tree earlier, and a lot of them were jumping on the same branch, and actually the wood was holding that heat for, I don't know, even if we went back now it might still be glowing for a long time. So that's something that I didn't know before I got the camera. So the kinds of surfaces that I could end up using in the final shot, I'm still thinking about those, and I'm learning, and I'm thinking wood is good. Railings are harder, but not impossible. Flat surfaces are really excellent when they're traversing or cat leaping onto the walls and then traversing along them. They're really excellent. And I actually didn't realise that the trainers would have so much friction against the wall. I think I was thinking about footprints as opposed to friction created by almost drawing a line with the trainers. So following the research and development week, I then started to think about the locations that I would actually go ahead and film my artwork in. Initially that involved me walking the streets of Westminster with an assistant and a GPS and a map and a camera, and basically putting my parkour hat on and trying to imagine the space through the eyes of somebody who would do parkour. So trying to think about parts of the streets or buildings or rooftops or parks or walls or whatever it was that would be suitable to do the final shoot, now that I knew what kinds of things that I might be shooting. I had a chat with Parkour Generations, and sort of we decided that it would be best that if somebody could come along and look at the sites that I'd identified as perhaps being potentially good locations to shoot. Because although what I was doing was trying to put on my parkour hat and see the city through their eyes, I knew that I could never really do that properly.
We can do everything everywhere with the number of people you want. Really, it's really, you tell me, because yeah, for us, for me here, I could spend the whole day, even the whole week, the whole month, just running here and finding new tricks. So really, if you don't say me stop, I won't. So I could be 1, 2, 10 people running here all day long. So for us, yeah, it's always good.
It's just so fantastic, sort of being with Stefan, and then he can see all these extra bits that I could never even think of that could be, I don't know.
I think that's the experience.
It's just great.
I'm practicing every day.
I know, and it's just fantastic because I've never had that experience. I'm like, you know, never been able to speak to somebody who can see those things that I can't see, and it's just great.
It's part of our sport to see and create movement all the time with the environment around you. So it's every time I see stuff, it's becoming a reflex now, naturally.
I felt like he was thinking along the same lines as me, so he understood exactly what I was trying to achieve, even though he hadn't had the experience of using the camera. He hadn't really seen very much footage that I'd shot with the camera at that stage. I think he really keyed into like the creative side of the project and what I was trying to achieve by filming it.
We have many options, can come from behind, jump over, and then do a tic-tac and grab the pipe, climb up, or go straight from the rail onto a cat leap. We can tic-tac here, step on the wood, go over the rail, come back. Yes, potential, a lot to do.
A lot?
Yeah, a lot to do.
In order for the project to move on, we had to obviously get permission from the people who owned those buildings or used the buildings that we were proposing to work on. So during that initial recce, we also met with the people in charge of building management and risk assessments, health and safety, and the people basically who would be giving us permission, saying yes or no to the project.
It's obviously, you know, going down protected edges and climbing at height and all that stuff. It all goes down to the risk assessments and you know, how the university feels about it. But I don't think people who do this all the time, it's sort of accepting the risk, isn't it? And you're a specialist in it anyway, so we'll have to see how it goes. But it's us looking at the risk assessments and how we feel with our insurances, and if there was an incident, how the liability of the university would be. Whether there's some sort of, not waiving, but sort of agreeing to the risk and all that stuff, that if he gets halfway up the downpipe then falls off. The question is, whose liability is it? The downpipe was not fixed correctly. Is it our liability? It's a
bit dirty.
From here, you can even start from this wall, run and jump straight to the other wall.
So that was a brilliant experience to be able to be with somebody whose mind can do that, who can see the built environment in a completely different way to the way, you know, how most people experience architecture.
A cat or tiger. Step 1, 2, and jump over. Jump and grab the edge of the window. And from this, come back to this wall and climb up.
The initial reaction to the proposal was quite mixed. Some people that we approached were so excited by the project and hadn't ever experienced this kind of project before, and they were it seemed very supportive and encouraging. They wanted to do all that they could to help me gain permission to film on their building. In other cases, people had a little bit, they were a little bit more nervous about the idea, so it was a little bit more difficult to persuade them to allow us to film there. And then unfortunately, in some situations, it was a situation that people weren't willing to take on that risk. So we didn't manage to secure all of the sites that I initially hoped for. But in the final shoot, I worked with Stefan and Johan for the first day, and that was really nice because there was continuity with the conversations that Stefan and I had previously in those locations to, you know, that we were then putting into practice the things that we talked about in the initial recce's. So when you say that the rain would make your feet slip if you were to do a cat leap, those are the kind of marks probably that...
I mean, usually if I do traversing, you'll see only one little tiny, very small point. But today it will look more like that, definitely. Was it raining this day?
No.
I would like to know who's done that. Punishment. Brian? Okay. Thank you.
Clear when I got out of bed this morning at just before 7, starting to think a bit positively because I knew the weather forecast wasn't good. By the time I got in the taxi, it was absolutely torrential rain. Crap really. I felt nervous because I felt that there was a lot of pressure to do it there and then because I had the camera for a week. The guys were quite flexible about how they would work within that week, but still I couldn't sort of keep cancelling or postponing or reshooting. I had to sort of stick to a certain amount of days working with them. The forecast for the weather was pretty bleak, so I was really nervous that I wasn't going to get the film done that I needed to get done in the days allocated. Before every day of the shoot, I would have to get up at about 6 o'clock in the morning to check the weather forecast, and obviously I checked it the night before as well, but I was stuck to the television and analysing all the different weather forecasts for the day and trying to make a decision on whether or not we'd actually go ahead and shoot that day. Do I postpone and not shoot today and potentially lose a day of filming that I won't be able to actually gain again later on in the week before the camera has to go back? Or do I try and achieve something today with the idea that actually we might only get an hour's film done out of a whole day, and then obviously I've set up the whole day and haven't achieved as much as I wanted to in that day. So it's really difficult to make those calls. The first day I decided to go ahead with filming because the weather was sort of changeable, so I didn't know if it was going to change for the better or for the worse. And I think it was difficult working conditions, but I think we were still reasonably lucky with the weather.
We'll play 1 or 2 feet. You see, we have two different techniques. So we try both. 1 feet and 2 feet.
At the same time, it's not so good.
It's snowing.
Sleet.
It's between rain and
For me, certainly, I don't know about everybody else, but for me, that didn't help with morale, because when you're working in windy, wet conditions and you're really limited with what you can shoot, so you're frightened of the camera getting wet, you're worried about the moves that can be practiced with parkour, because you can't, in wet conditions just changes everything in terms of what's safe, what's possible, and I just think it was hard weather working conditions, but everybody did a really good job bearing that in mind.
Technical problems. Boring.
And the next day I worked with Forrest and Thomas, and that was really good because there was then the continuity with Forrest, because he had the experience of the thermal imaging cameras from the youth group work that we'd done. And Thomas I hadn't worked with before, but that was really great because he just brought something different to the whole project. He was quite fast, quite nimble, and he could do things that I hadn't seen done, so that added another element to the filming, which was nice.
Nice.
Yes.
That is so good.
And then finally, on the final day, I filmed with quite a lot of the Parkour Generations team, which was great because that gave me the chance to film lots of people making lots of marks all on top of each other, and getting that accumulation of marks, that build up that you can't get if there's only one person doing the move. And also it was really good because it allowed me to get a variation in different types of moves, because everybody seems to do the same move in a completely different way. That's really revealed when you look at the thermal imaging footage, because when you see the marks that each person makes, it's almost like their signature is being made on that surface. I'm really excited by the body of work that I've got. I could never have anticipated that kind of footage when I set out on this project. The artwork comprises of a series of short films, which I intend to all be shown simultaneously, so in a gallery context, installed so that you can see more than one at once. So the idea is that you would move through the space and sort of dip in and out of several films at once. So you might not watch all of them from the beginning to the end and then go to the next one. So there's no real order to them. The length of the film is determined by the length of time that mark takes to disperse. Some of the films will be as short as 20 or 30 seconds, and some of them are much longer. Each piece is just capturing one move. The work begins by filming a piece of architecture, part of the street, whatever, and then there's action through that scene, the marks are made, and then I film those marks until they go away, until the architecture's cold again and back to how it was when we started. But I'm trying to convey in the work the kind of feeling that I had like on the day that I was with Stefan and other days when I'm walking around the city and I'm trying to imagine alternative routes, so not sticking to the paths, not sticking to the bridges and the walkways and stuff. And I'm hoping that the work retains a bit of that thought process that I've been through and opens up ideas about thinking about space in a different way. And I think by using the thermal imaging camera to show the prints that people leave on the surfaces, my aim of doing that is to kind of slow down the whole parkour process. I'm hoping that that's what the work does when other people watch it who might not be familiar with parkour, but hopefully it just kind of gets a sense of that idea that there are other possibilities about moving around the space.
You know that means 5.
Perfect,
Yeah.
wicked. One more time.
No. Is it too much to do it again?
No, one more time.
Yeah.
It's so good, but so painful. I'm suffering. This is definitely the one.